So I'm glad you think it's interesting because we think it's a great way to not only educate about what you're doing, and give back. And part of that give back is the gift of empowering the community to do their own thing. Because a lot of people will be we think a lot of people will be very interested in that.
Yeah, well, if you have any ideas that you want to share with us, that would be great too. I think it's always interesting to hear what people want to hear from us. I find that sustainability is kind of a complicated concept for a lot of people who aren't really familiar with sustainability and winemaking is complicated for people sometimes, and because there's no one definition, and it encompasses so much that it's hard to kind of capture it in a really short, succinct way. And so we really are working hard right now on figuring out how we can best convey easily understandable and also relevant information from our sales team to people who want to know more, without having it be overboard in terms of what we're communicating and what we're sharing, because we could easily, give them too much information and have it be overwhelming or interesting.
Right.
Yeah, we hear that loud and clear.
One of the things that one of the things, and again, maybe this hopefully the last thoughts here. One of the things that when we go out to kind of photograph your world out there, we want to try to capture details, and you don't have to give us a list right now, but maybe it's something you can think about. We want to capture some details of sustainability, visually. Like, okay, there's a good little, here's how the SAP reading monitors work, or, what are the little details that could show up visually and help us tell a good story that we'd like to go photograph. One of the things I heard on a tour of the Cardinal, if that's the right pronunciation, the winery there, is that they have like a sustainability kind of command center or something like that, where they're measuring everything. I don't know if that was something that all of them do, or if when we finally do go out there, are there places that you could maybe point us to? And again, you don't have to do this right now on the call, but are there places you could point us to that, like, this would be like a great highlight, maybe 3 or 5 terrific highlights that we should capture? Might be something that, could help us point in the right direction later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can. I think a lot of our wineries do have a command center that manages everything at. There's also the Tesla batteries we're using. Those are really photographable and solar. There's sap flow monitors, and then there are a couple other things like our barrel wash water system that we're using to recycle water that we're using to wash our barrels in multiple times. Or there's the Blue Morph technology. It's a UV technology to wash out our tanks. Those sorts of things are kind of fun and interesting, and we could give you guys a list of things that you might potentially want to shoot, and then maybe you could pick and choose to kind of give you as broad of a picture as possible of what you want to tell.
That would be great. Yeah, and it's not always necessarily photographs too. It's just conceptually how we could represent that, because we're creatives at heart as well. So all of that will help. And then also, this might be a question for Amy. You had mentioned all of the various philanthropic initiatives, the education and the children's and the environment and the health communities. Just to have a simple list of all of those as well, so we know what everything is. And I'm not sure if all of those are all mentioned in the the big report that you guys did, the sustainability report. But just to have just to know what all of those initiatives are would be helpful.
Yeah, and you know what? I know later this week you guys are talking with Julian and Galen. And I know Galen is actually working on putting a backgrounder together on philanthropic efforts, so that's something that's in the works, and we can definitely get that for you. And I know they will both also be good folks for you to chat with ideas around specific either shots or concepts with sustainability that we can capture also.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Katie, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. It was lovely to hear your children in the background. We have our own as well, and it's a lot of fun. Well, thanks so much. And we'll,
Thank you.
You can hang on if you want. Maybe we can talk to Sean for a couple of minutes, or we can let you go back to your other job.
Sounds good. Yeah, if there's anything that you want further clarification on that I didn't really cover during the call, please let me know too, and I can always
Perfect.
get you some additional. All right, thank
Ideal.
you.
No, it's good. Thank you so much. It's good to break the ice and just start to kind of get things moving. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty.
Okay,
Sean, you still around?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. And again, we don't want to take too much of your time as well, but that was a great call with your wife. And could you want to kind of rewind and tell us about your role, what you're doing there, and what gets you out of bed in the morning, and what what your focus is?
So just to give some background, Katie and I met in 2007. I just graduated from University of Washington, a biochemistry degree, and I was working in the lab at Stone Street. And Katie was taking a break from Wellesley at the time, so she was working in the cellar, and we sort of hit it off that year. It was a great vintage, 2007 in California. But yeah, I quickly realized that the great wine's made in the vineyard, and so I left the winery and took up a position in a labor crew that we had at Jackson Family Wines back in, I think it was 2008, and then worked my way up the chain there, learned how to drive tractor, learned how to do all the tasks in the vineyard, all the way through harvest, pruning through harvest, and worked on a few vineyard developments. One of them, the Pine Mountain Vineyard Development, which is in the Pine Mountain Cloverdale Peak AVA. That vineyard's about 2,800 to 3,000 foot elevation on the top of a mountain. So that was a great experience, and pretty much every year I've been working on new developments, and into my role, I'm a vineyard director now. So I oversee most of our Pinot and Chardonnay production day-to-day operations from Petaluma to Russian River to Anderson Valley. Also the Annapolis Sonoma Coast vineyards, and I also take care of. Yeah, I have a bunch of great people who work with me every day, and farming, as you know, is the 7-day-a-week job, and so I'm just glad that harvest is done right now and we have a little breather. But pretty soon we'll be starting up with again, so that's basically what I do.
When you're talking about development and new developments, and are you talking about, okay, there's some property that then I think the vineyard should be on that property, or what kind of, like, how do you define what a good development is, or what good land is for great wines? What is the process when you think about development?
Well, yeah,
If that makes sense.
I mean, I guess you can look at it in two different camps. Vineyards that are production vineyards, and then you have vineyard sites that are you go into the development knowing that it's going to be, $100 bottle of wine, or just a high quality bottle of wine that you're aiming for. And for example, mountain, steep terrain, beautiful iron-rich soils, rocky soils. That's a vineyard where we had the goal of producing a world-class Cabernet Sauvignon or a Bordeaux blend with a little bit of that we have up there. We also have some Sauvignon Blanc growing up there as well. So, we try to keep things focused towards that goal, and that's really what drives me is that we're trying to make the most amazing wines from these properties. And so rather than just going into Mendocino County and looking at a valley vineyard that costs, $100,000 or let's say $50,000 an acre, we went up to Pine Mountain where land's much more expensive, and put in the investment to make something that's just special. And so that's the same thing. When you're looking at Pinot Noir, you could easily buy Valley Vineyard and grow 7-8 tons an acre in the Russian River or the Anderson